Zarya, the princess of the Zorathians, had never been nervous in her life. She had commanded armies, negotiated with kings, and outwitted rivals from across the galaxy. But as she sat in the grand chamber of her wedding palace, her hands trembled slightly, betraying her calm exterior. The wedding had been a grand affair, held in the heart of her people's capital. Alien delegates from across the galaxy had gathered, and Earth's representatives had arrived with awe. Zarya was the symbol of peace, the bridge between two worlds, a powerful leader in her own right. And yet, as she sat there waiting for her new husband, Adam, her heart fluttered with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Adam was human, a species Zarya had once considered primitive. Her people, the Zorathians, were known for their vast knowledge of the universe, their strength, and their advanced technologies. Humans, on the other hand, were new to the intergalactic stage, their planet still recovering from internal conflicts. Yet in a rare alliance between Earth and the Zorathian Empire, Zarya had agreed to marry Adam. At first, she had agreed only out of duty. The peace between their people depended on the union, but something about Adam had intrigued her, something she couldn't quite put her finger on. When he had first arrived, Zarya had been struck by his presence. He wasn't like the men she had known. He wasn't as tall as some Zorathian warriors, nor was he as physically imposing. But his eyes, those eyes, were filled with a calm confidence that made her feel small. She was the ruler of an entire race. Yet when Adam looked at her, it was as though she had no power at all. She had dismissed it at first. Maybe it was his human nature, something unfamiliar to her. But as the night went on, she found herself growing more and more curious about him. Adam was different. He was not like the men in her court who bowed to her at every command. He was a man who stood at her side as an equal. She was the one who should have been in control. But with him beside her, she felt unsure. Zarya's thoughts were interrupted as the doors to the chamber opened. Adam walked in, looking as calm as ever. His Blue Earth uniform clung to his broad shoulders, and his strong presence filled the room. He walked toward her, his eyes locking with hers. "Your Majesty," Adam said softly, his voice steady and clear. "Are you all right?" Zarya felt her pulse quicken. She had never been one to show weakness, but in that moment she felt vulnerable. She tried to steady herself, forcing a smile. "I am fine," she replied, her voice a little sharper than she intended. She quickly stood up, trying to regain her composure. "We must prepare for the night's celebration. The alliance between our worlds must be sealed." Adam smiled, but it wasn't the smile of someone eager to celebrate. There was something in his eyes, something that made Zarya pause. He wasn't looking at her as though she was the powerful princess of the Zorathian Empire. No, he was looking at her as though he understood her, as though he could see right through the wall she had built around herself. "Are you sure?" he asked, taking a step closer. "You seem distant." "It's only the two of us now. The world can wait." Zarya's heart raced. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing thoughts. She had never been one to let anyone get so close, yet with Adam she felt an undeniable pull. I'm just not used to this," she admitted, her voice quieter now. "I have been in control all my life. I am not sure how to be something else." Adam stepped forward, his gaze never leaving hers. He didn't seem worried or uncomfortable. He simply stood there, calm and steady, allowing the silence between them to stretch. Zarya noticed how easily he was able to command her attention without saying a word. His very presence was powerful. "You don't have to be anything else, Zarya," Adam said, his voice gentle. "You are enough as you are. I didn't marry you for your title or your power. I married you because of who you are, and I will stand by you no matter what." Zarya was taken aback. She had never been spoken to like this before. Not by her advisors, not by her people, and certainly not by any of the suitors who had once courted her. They had all been drawn to her power, to her beauty, and to her position. But Adam didn't seem to care about any of that. For the first time, Zarya realized that Adam wasn't looking at her as a princess. He was looking at her as a person, and it made her feel something deep inside her she had never experienced before. She swallowed hard. "But I am the princess, Adam. I have to be strong. I cannot show weakness." Adam's eyes softened. "And yet, Zarya, you show your true strength when you are honest with yourself. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to always be strong. Sometimes strength is in letting go, in trusting someone enough to stand by you." Zarya felt a wave of emotion crash over her. She had been so focused on maintaining control that she had never allowed herself to feel this vulnerable, to let someone else see past the armor she wore. But with Adam's words, she felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. It was as though, in that moment, he had given her permission to be human. Her heart fluttered and she looked down at her hands, which had finally stopped trembling. When she looked back up, Adam's gaze had softened, yet there was still that quiet strength in his eyes. She wasn't sure what to make of it, but she knew that she had never seen anyone like him before. The silence stretched between them, but this time it was comfortable. Zarya felt herself drawn to him, not just as a husband, but as a person, an equal in a way that no one else had ever been. "Adam," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. I don't know what this means. I've never been this way before." He smiled, reaching out gently to place a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to know everything, Zarya, just trust me. I'm not going anywhere, and I will always see you for who you truly are." For the first time, Zarya felt her breath steady. She had spent so long building walls, fearing that if she let anyone see who she really was, they would take advantage of her. But with Adam, she didn't feel the need for walls. She felt seen, understood, and for the first time truly accepted. The next day, Zarya found herself in a place she had never been before, unsure. The feeling unsettled her more than she cared to admit. She had always been the one in control, her mind sharp and focused. She had never questioned herself, never doubted her place in the galaxy. But with Adam, she was beginning to feel things that made her question everything. As the sun rose over the Zarathian capital, casting soft golden rays across the city, Zarya stood in the balcony of their royal quarters, gazing out at the view. The sprawling city stretched out before her, a mix of sleek alien architecture and natural landscapes that seemed almost magical. Yet her mind was not on the grandeur of the palace or the promise of a powerful future. Her thoughts were with Adam. She had spent the night with him, not in the way she had expected. It wasn't just about a physical connection, it was something deeper. Adam had been patient, understanding, and kind. He didn't demand her attention. He simply gave her the space to think, to understand, to be herself. But there was still something about him, something that made Zarya uneasy. He was human, yet there was something extraordinary about him that no one had ever told her. Something beyond the simple concept of his race, something she couldn't quite put into words. Zarya had always been taught that the Zarathians were the most advanced race in the universe. Their minds were sharp, their technology beyond compare, but here she was, facing a man whose gaze seemed to see through her, whose words had the power to make her feel vulnerable, something she had never allowed anyone to see. He wasn't a warrior or a conqueror. He was simply human. As the door to their quarters opened, Zarya turned to see Adam enter, looking as calm as ever. He had a way of moving, a quiet confidence that made her heart race. He smiled when he saw her standing by the window, lost in thought. "Good morning, Zarya," Adam said, his voice warm and familiar. "You look deep in thought." Zarya smiled softly, though she could feel the tension in her chest. "I was just thinking about last night," she admitted, turning to face him fully. "I've never felt like that before with you. I don't understand it." Adam took a step closer, his expression gentle. "You don't have to understand everything, Zarya. Sometimes it's enough to feel." Zarya's heart skipped a beat. She had never been so open with anyone. She had spent so many years guarding herself, building walls around her emotions. But Adam had a way of breaking through them without even trying. It was unsettling, yet comforting at the same time. "Do you ever feel out of place?" Zarya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Like you don't belong even in your own skin?" Adam looked at her for a long moment, as if weighing his words. Then slowly he nodded. "Sometimes. But that's the beauty of it, Zarya. We don't have to fit into anyone's expectations. We're allowed to be who we are, even if that means we don't always understand ourselves." Zarya blinked in surprise. His words resonated with her more than she cared to admit. She had always been the one to meet expectations, to be the perfect ruler, the perfect princess. But deep down she had always wondered if there was more to her than the title she carried. More to her than just the power and the responsibility. She had never allowed herself to question that. Until now. "Do you mean—" Zarya began, but her words faltered. "Do you mean that we can both be something more than we were taught to be?" Adam smiled, a knowing glint in his eyes. "Exactly. We can define ourselves, Zarya, together. You don't have to be a princess if you don't want to, and I don't have to be just a human. Zarya felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. It was strange, this feeling. It was as though Adam was offering her a glimpse into a world where she didn't have to be anything other than herself. A world where she didn't have to carry the weight of her people's expectations on her shoulders. But even as she felt the pull toward him, she couldn't ignore the nagging feeling in her gut. There was something Adam wasn't telling her. Something about his past. Something that made him different from any other human. She had seen it in his eyes, that quiet strength that wasn't of this world. Adam, Zarya said, her voice steady despite the swirling emotions inside her. There's something about you, something more than just a human. I can see it in your eyes and the way you carry yourself. You're not like the others. Adam didn't look surprised by her words. He simply nodded as if he had been expecting this moment. You're right, he said quietly. I wasn't always just a human. My lineage is not what you might think. Zarya's heart raced as she took a step toward him. What do you mean? What are you hiding, Adam? He looked at her, his expression softening. I've been hiding it because I didn't want you to see me differently. But the truth is, I come from a bloodline of humans that stretches back far beyond Earth. We were once part of a forgotten race, one that had the power to influence the stars. Our ancestors were powerful, Zarya. Not in the way your people are with technology or weapons, but in ways you wouldn't believe. Zarya felt a chill run down her spine. This was not what she had expected. Adam wasn't just a simple man. He was something far older, far more complicated than she could have imagined. You're telling me that your ancestors were not just humans, but something else? Zarya's voice was barely above a whisper. Adam nodded slowly. Yes, my family's power lies in the ability to understand others, to see inside them, beyond what they show the world. I can read people, Zarya. I can feel what they feel, see their deepest fears and desires. It's not something I chose, but something that has always been in my blood. Zarya stood frozen, trying to process his words. She had always believed that her people were the most advanced in the universe, that their knowledge and power were unmatched. But Adam was telling her that humans, with all their flaws and imperfections, held a power she had never imagined. You've been hiding this from me all this time? Zarya asked, her voice trembling with a mix of awe and confusion. I didn't want to scare you, Adam replied. I didn't want you to think I was using this power to control you. I only want to understand you, Zarya, to be with you as an equal. Zarya looked into his eyes, feeling the weight of his words settle deep within her. For the first time, she saw Adam not just as her husband, but as a person. Someone who had been hiding his true self, just as she had been hiding hers. She realized that they were both more than the roles they had been given. Together, they could be something greater than either of them had ever imagined. As she reached out to him, her hand trembling slightly, Zarya understood. Adam's gaze wasn't just a window into his soul. It was a mirror showing her the truth of who she could be. And in that moment, she knew she was no longer just the Zarathian princess. She was something more. She was human too,